Good afternoon. Welcome to EduSat Network. Friend, today we are going to discuss making of India, the dimension of unity and diversity. We will have sociological approach to study the making of India. I would say making sense of India and the role of unity and diversity. And for discussion on this very topic, we have in the studio Dr. Kumar Suresh. He is a professor of sociology in National University of Educational Planning and Administration, and he has extensively written on this very topic in different journals, national and international journals. And he has published two monographs on this very issue. The one name is the Managing Diversity, and the other monograph is Pluralism and Accommodation of Minorities and Deprived Groups in India. And Dr. Suresh has also written many books. The one book is the Pluralism, Minority and National Integration. So I think his knowledge on this very topic help us to understand this topic and give insight how to understand the making sense of India and the role of unity and diversity. So on your behalf, I welcome him for EduSat lecture. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Amrendraji. This is a privilege to be here and share my views and thinking, understanding about the whole issue of making sense of India. This is very important and topic, and really it is nice to share with you the I wish all the I wish all the best and all my good wishes to all the viewers of EduSat networks. So the topic which I am going to approach, this is very complex. This is complex for various reasons. In fact, Indian society is so complex that cannot be understood just by one dimension or concentrating on one dimension. And as the topic has been placed before you, that is making sense of India. So this is one important aspect. This is also an important question, how to approach the whole issue of making sense of India. Whether it is just a territorial identity on which we can think and understand about India, or something more. The way I would like to approach this problem is grounded in sociological reality, how society in India is constituted, what are its different dimensions and what are the dimensions of diversity, and how these diversities are weaved together that provides a strong sense of unity in India, and finally it emerges out as an important marker of our identity, that is one inclusive identity of Indian identity. That can also be said as national identity. So before coming to this aspect of unity, it is also important to understand as to how this diversity define the whole gamut of Indian society, and how it is reflected in our socio-political structure, because the whole political structure is not detached and diverse from our societal roots. There is some kind of correspondence and congruence between our political identity and the diversity which is below this political identity or political unity. So in this context, I would like to highlight some of the aspects of diversity first, and then we will come to the issue of unity, how unity is maintained out of our own distinctive form of diversity. In fact, India is one country which is defined by diversity, and this diversity is bewildering one. It is so complex, it is so diverse that it cannot be understood simply from one lens. It has to be understood in terms of its multidimensionality. So at least for our own understanding of diversity in India, and how these diversity contribute to making of an identity which is defined as Indian identity or India as such, it is important to boil down to some of the important reference points of diversity. So while we are referring to diversity, 3-4 important markers of diversity that need to be mapped out. First important dimension of diversity is religious diversity. India is so diverse in its terms of religious composition that you do not find a parallel in any other country. As far as our information and records tell us that India is religiously diverse. All the 8 major religions are here in India, including Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, Jainism, Christianity, Sikhism, and besides Jews, Parsis, and many others religious groups, including animistic. So beside these religious groups which are recorded in the census of India or in government documents, there are many animistic religions which are followed by various groups in India. So these are just reference points of our religious diversity, wherein we maintain that India is religiously diverse, wherein at least 8 major religious groups are here and all religions are here present in India. So if we take each of the religious group, whether these religious groups are homogeneous, this is an important aspect of our inquiry on understanding. If we are thinking about diversity in India, religious diversity is one important component, but within this religious diversity, if we start examining each of the religious groups or religion, we find variety of practices and variety of internal differentiation, internal diversity within the group. So, for example, if we take Hinduism, Hinduism is one religion which is not uniform, because Hinduism does not have one single book, one codified system of belief. There are many strands within the Hinduism. Different cults are there, different sects are there. All these cults and sects, they have their own distinctive way of looking at religious belief or dealing with religious beliefs. So within Hinduism you find variety of practices, and all these practices are important in their own respect. You cannot say that this form of Hinduism is more authentic than others, because different religious within the sect or within within Hinduism, different sects have their own individuality, and each of these sects are important in their own way. For example, Vaishnavism, Saivism, Shakti cult, 3 important dominant strands within the Hindu religion. But besides these 3 dominant strands, there are many others. Many Hindus would not like to classify in themselves into any of these classification. So therefore, this internal diversity within Hinduism is important. If you take, even religious texts, you find variety of articulation of religious beliefs. So if you take one case of Ramayana is important religious text of Hindu, but there are variations across the regions. In North India, Ramayana and version of Ramayana, Valmiki Ramayana, Tulsi Das written Ramayana is one. In Tamil Nadu you have Kamban Ramayana. So in different regions you have regional diversity, regionally rooted version of Ramayana and a story related to Ram and different characters portrayed in Ramayana. So this has to be understood if we are trying to understand the diversity in India. So within Hinduism, this kind of diversity you can easily identify. If we take the case of Islam, I would like to touch upon some of the religious group and their internal diversity, because this is very, very important. If we are trying to understand the whole idea of diversity and how these diversities are weaved together in the form of unity, so in this context it is also important to understand the internal diversity within the groups. So if we take, for example, Islam is considered to be a codified religion because single book is there. So this kind of codified belief system that is there. But if we take or map out the Indian practices, there are variety of groups within followers of Islam. I would not say that diversity in belief system as such or within the Islam. There are followers of Islam's have their own internal diversities. So Shia, Sunnis, these are sects with a specific point in this regard, in this context is important to remember that while Muslim population interacting with Hindu population, because there has been pattern of interaction between different religious groups. So within this broad parameter of interaction, they have also been influenced by Hindu religious practices or in many customs, traditions. So these kind of practices which are followed by some of the Muslim groups in India, you may not find parallel in other countries which are purely Islamic, based on Islamic principles, jurisprudence, etc. So therefore, within Islam you find variety of practices, especially in the followers of Islam. In other religious group also there are variations. So religious diversity is very, very important. Then the question arises that if so much diversity of religion that is existing in India, how unity is maintained out of this religious diversity? I will touch upon other forms of diversity, and certainly I would like to reflect on the dimension of unity. But in this respect, it is also important to understand that in within the religious group, there has been tradition of intermingling of groups and some kind of intercultural practices, wherein one religious group has been adapting to the practices of other groups, being influenced by other groups. So you can easily identify many practices which may not be very particular to one religious group, but that can be followed by many other groups. So even at the doctrinal principle or on the doctrinal aspect, you can identify some kind of negotiation of religious diversity and differences also. So on the one hand, because each religious group has its own claims of superiority, its own claims of truth. So in that case, how to come together? That is one important aspect that needs to be understood. Dynamics of coming together and giving some space for unity, that is very, very important to understand. And in this context, I would like to map out some of the important dimensions of say negotiation between doctrinal negotiation between religious groups. So at least three important ways or principles of negotiations can be easily identified. I would like to term first one as an approach of religious pluralism. So religious pluralism is an inherent and important aspect of Indian life. You may not find this kind of approach in many other countries, but in India we find an approach of religious pluralism, and that has also been given due respect in our constitutional document. So each of the religious groups have been assigned their own, given their own autonomy of practicing their own religious groups, and it is not necessary to impose the belief of majority over the minority or one group over the others. So you may follow your own religion, and while following your own religion, you interact with other religious group without say assimilating with them or without accepting any of the religious practices or any of the aspects of belief system. So, this is very, very important, and therefore, religious pluralism is one of the defining line of Indian diversity, giving some kind of a space for maintaining unity. Second approach of negotiation in terms of religious diversity is approach of syncretic tradition. Different religious groups have been interacting with each other, and in the process of interaction, some kind of syncretic tradition you can identify. And this syncretic tradition can be understood in terms of intercultural interaction, which cannot be just reduced to one specific religious group, rather that can be extended to many others. So, a different distinctive identity emerged out of the interaction of various groups. In other words, in popular parlance, it is also referred as composite culture. So, syncretic tradition, they are very, very rich syncretic tradition in India, and this syncretic tradition can be identified in different kind of practices, be it music, art, or many aspects, social and cultural aspects. So that can be easily identified. So, composite culture is one word which has been used to understand this complex reality of coming together, and this coming together of different religious groups either through evolving a syncretic tradition or some kind of mutual sharing of certain practices, certain aspects of belief system, that is very, very important. So, this is one of the important aspects of our religious diversity, and how these religious diversities are given shape in terms of maintaining unity or making sense of India as a composite identity of its people, emerging out of various groups and communities. So, even in the constitutional text which we have evolved in our process, we have enacted our constitution. Within the constitution, considerable space has been given for the idea of maintaining individuality of different religious groups, maintaining the richness of religious pluralism. If you just visit the set of articles in our constitution, that those articles classified under the fundamental rights, article 25 to 28, these articles in one way or the other indicate how to live together. Despite our religious diversity, how we have to live together. So, this whole idea of living together of different religious groups, that is given a space in this set of articles. So, herein a state has been understood in terms of its religious neutrality. A state is neutral to any religion. It would not favor one religion over the other. So, ordinarily a state would not interfere in the affairs of the community. So, this is very, very distinctiveness of our model of negotiating diversity and making sense of India and providing a strength to the strands of unity. So, this is very, very important, because religious diversity is maintained through approach of religious pluralism, not merely at the societal level. We already talked about societal level here, wherein three important components are important. One, with respect to religious pluralism, second in terms of syncretic tradition, and third in terms of dialogic exchange. It means different religious groups have been in the process of dialogic exchange. they have been in the process of dialogue with regard to their own practices. Some of the aspects of one religion could be positive than other, and here and there you can find some imprints of this dialogic exchange. And even in the constitutional document, somehow we have also given some kind of, say, a space for respecting religious diversity through an approach of religious pluralism. So, this is one important aspect of our diversity and unity. Second dimension of diversity is relating to caste. Caste is very particular to India. Caste-like phenomena you can identify in many other countries also. Many times, I mean, race and caste, they are interchangeably used. But if you are a serious scholar of Indian society, if you are a serious scholar of sociology, you have every chance to visit and revisit these two categories of race and caste. So, caste for Indian sociologists or as a living reality, one can make difference between race and caste. So, I am not entering into the debate of making difference between race and caste, but the point which I want to emphasize here, that caste is particular to Indian society and it is distinct. Caste as Louis Dumont had used in terms of hierarchy, and hierarchy in terms of its ideological underpinnings. So, ideological underpinning you can identify in case of caste system. But caste system, if we are talking of caste system, this is generic word, but within this generic word you can identify two, you generally come across two concepts, concept of varna and concept of jati. The concept of varna is more comprehensive one. It can easily be classified in terms of great tradition. It is coming out of great tradition or coming out from religious tradition, wherein groups have been classified in four important folds, I mean Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. Beside these four categories, there is another category which is outside this Varna fold. But many times we make mistake of using Varna and Jati simultaneously or interchangeably. Within these Varna categories, it is important to understand that how different groups have been formed within the Varna fold, and different variety you find, different groups you find across the regions and throughout the country, and these groups are by and large locally rooted jati groups. So, jati groups are more important for mapping out the dimension of diversity. You cannot capture the strands of Indian diversity while referring to caste system. You have to go to jati groups. So, even if you take the case of anthropological survey of India, anthropological survey of India has documented, identified different jati groups which are region specific, in different states, which are broadly identified with one Varna fold or another, one of the Varnas, be it Brahmins or Kshatriya or Vaishya or Shudra. So this dynamics has to be understood if we want to refer to or if we want to understand the diversity of Indian society on the one hand, and how these diversities are weaved together in the context of unity. So, if we take the case of jati groups, you find variety of jati groups. So, sociological literature have referred to these jati groups and they have also pointed out that how did these Jati groups which have been locally rooted or which has a specific reference to regions, how they come together. So, in the past, religious places were important reference point for coming together. So, different locally specific Jati groups, they used to come together and they used to interact with each other. So, some kind of interaction between different Jati groups, and they identifying themselves with one Varna or the other. So, that was one of the important reference point in the past. But especially after industrialization, urbanization, and say whole process of introduction of science and technology, a different forms of interaction has also taken place, and this has enhanced a scope for interaction within the Jati groups. And you find different studies, sociological studies have been done on this dimension, that how different Jati groups interact with each other, and in this case role of say media, now we have new media we have, and through new media people are interacting with each other, even if they are not aware about each other, even if they are not familiar with each other, they have not meet themselves. So, these new forms of interactions have come in the public domain. But some kind of continuity you find. So far, the basic issue of or basic aspect of interaction between Jati groups are concerned. So, this interaction between different Jati groups has contributed to maintaining some kind of awareness about similar kind of Jati groups located in other regions. But it would be a mistake to understand that one Jati group coming together through various means, interacting through various means, they have their own context of interaction, but that interaction may not necessarily translate into say creating cleavages across say regions. Different regionally specific Jati groups are also having other reference points, and due to this distinctive regional references or locality references, they may not come together and create a kind of vertical split of groups. And due to this aspect, this dynamics, you find along with diversity some kind of intermingling of different Jati groups, and if they are intermingling with each other, that also contribute to some kind of aspect of unity. I am not saying that they are entering into say interdining or they are marrying with each other, that these are distinctive aspect of the caste system, and these have been foundational dimensions of Indian caste system. So, it is not necessary that they will marry with each other or they will enter into endogamous arrangement, or they would go outside their own Jati groups, that may be as per their own locally specific practices, but they come together, and coming together is not essentially translated into vertical split of different Jati groups. So, this is very important for understanding the whole idea of Jati groups and its internal diversity. Third important aspect of diversity that needs to be mapped out, that is language. Language is very important marker of identity. It is not merely a means of communicating with each other, but it is also an important marker of identity. So if you just map out the linguistic diversity in India, you find that variety of linguistic groups are there across India. Some of the groups are claiming themselves as language groups. But there are some aspects of the dynamics of dealing with the issue of religious groups. But if we just take a non-official view of language and linguistic pluralism, you find variety because different language groups are there, and therefore you find there are different estimation of language groups and linguistic diversity. So, in some cases you find that some linguistics language specialists had referred to as linguistic diversity. More than 1,000 linguist group they have identified. In other cases the number may be less, or depending on how do you understand language groups. But if you just refer to the idea of language issue and linguistic diversity, you find variety. So in this language case, it is also important as to how these linguistic groups are dealt with. So there are two important dimensions. If you take the view of diversity of linguistic groups or language groups, you find diversity. But how this diversity of linguistic groups have been treated by the government of India. So here in the official view comes into picture. So if we take the official view of language groups and treatment of different language groups for different official purposes, you can identify one important schedule in the Constitution of India itself. So 8th schedule of the Constitution of India takes view of official and non-official languages. So in this case, you find within the 8th schedule, some of the language groups are identified or listed as national languages. So at the time of independence, there were only 14 official national languages, but now we find some through different constitutional amendment, now 22 languages are classified as national languages of India. So these national languages are spoken by people in different regions, and of course Hindi is official language of India. It is also known as Rajbhasha. So besides Hindi, English is also a language of communication. So besides Hindi and English, you find that in different states, different languages are used as official language of the state. For example, if you take say Telugu. Telugu is official language of Andhra Pradesh. Similarly, Malayalam, say Tamil, Assamese, Gujarati. So all these languages are of course region specific or specific to a state, but they also become official language. So the whole idea of officializing language and the whole policy of language becomes important. How do we treat language groups? So if we do not make reference to official and non-official treatment of linguistic diversity, we may not be able to understand the whole gamut of or dynamic interplay between diversity and unity. So diversity of language group, that is a given reality. But if you are talking about language groups in official transaction or in transaction of the states, in this case there is necessity to have some kind of a policy, and therefore after independence India has come up with the policy, and 8th schedule of the Constitution is specifically important in this regard, wherein some languages have been given the status of national languages. It does not mean that other language groups are not national. For official purposes, they may not be national, but in their own regions, in their own locality of a speech community, they are they are very much important. So, apart from these national languages, there are regional languages. The Constitution of India also talks about or takes into cognizance mother tongues. Different speech communities have their own mother tongue and they speak their own languages. So, especially if you come to the issue of transacting in the classroom at the primary level, this is important, wherein it has, especially in the Right to Education Act, it has been resolved and it has been say included as a constitutional obligation that or as per the application of the Act, that every children has to be taught in primary classes in their mother, his or her mother tongue. So, mother tongue is very important. Of course, there are provisions of transacting classes in mother tongue. There are certain limitations within the policy of language and education with regard to education of the children. But besides entering into this, the whole idea of linguistic diversity is accepted in India, and this linguistic diversity is not just recognized in the public private realm of different communities, linguistic communities or linguistic group or speech group, but they are also given some kind of official treatment. A state definitely recognize that India is a linguistically diverse country, and therefore language pluralism is one of the very important and important feature of Indian diversity, and this diversity is recognized for building up to or adding up to the idea of unity. So, if we are talking about idea of unity, a specific reference to with a specific reference to language, it is not talking about homogenizing all the language groups or homogenizing all the linguistic groups or violating the rights of all the linguistic groups. Rather, an attempt is made to bring together all the language groups and provide them some kind of autonomy or in say their own realm of language competence in their own say respective region and locality. So, of course, there are some limitations, and in recognizing that all languages would be language of the state or national languages there, because India is so diverse linguistically that it would be very difficult to transact official say business if you include all the groups. So, a kind of hierarchy has been adopted by in the language policy, wherein we have layering. So, on the one hand we have language national languages, then you have regional languages, then some of the languages are recognized as mother tongues, but in many cases you find that some of the speech community, they claim that this is our mother tongue, and this our mother tongue is distinct from mother tongue which is recognized by the state. So, there are some problem areas in relating or some area referring to our linguistic diversity, and some kind of policy intervention needs to be taken care of or to be made with regard to dealing with the issue of linguistic diversity. But as of now, we have a language policy wherein we have underlined the diversity of language groups, and language pluralism is official position of India, besides recognizing languages at the societal level. So this is very, very important one. Another important dimension of diversity in India is tribal community, tribal affiliation of groups. That is very, very important. So you find number of tribal groups, and the tribal groups have their own distinctive identity, they have their own distinctive practices, they have their own distinctive customs, and all these tribal groups cannot be just put together in one homogeneous category due to internal diversity or internal differentiation within the tribal groups. So if you just make a comparison of different tribal groups, so you find that tribal groups which are there in northeastern states of India, they are not similar to the tribal groups which are in the states of Madhya Pradesh, a state of Chhattisgarh, a state of Jharkhand, or Orissa or Andhra Pradesh, because these are the areas wherein tribals are by and large located in plains. So in northeastern cases, majority of the tribals are located in that region, and these tribal groups I mean significant number of the tribal groups are located in hills. So taking into account their distinctiveness, distinctive practices, their own institution of governance, the Constitution of India had recognized this distinctiveness of tribal groups, and 6th schedule of the Constitution was specifically meant for dealing with the distinctiveness of these tribal groups, which are located especially in the hill areas of northeastern regions. Besides the 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution, we have also 5th schedule in our Constitution, which also makes some reference to tribal groups, and this reference is specifically meant for tribal population in plain areas. So if tribal groups are there located in plain area, how can we protect their distinctive identity? How how they can be their practices be protected from practices from majority or threat of majority absorption. So the 5th schedule of the Indian Constitution makes some provision wherein distinctiveness of tribal groups which are located in the plain area, they can be protected. Besides this aspect of protection of tribal groups, that is also important to understand. The tribal groups having their own linguistic identity. It is bewildering to note that if you take one tribal group, tribal groups in one state, you find that the tribal groups are not homogeneous in their religious practices or many different ways. For example, if you take Arunachal Pradesh or case of Tripura, in these two states you find, just for example, there are many other states also having distinctiveness, but if you just take these two states, you find that within Arunachal Pradesh, majority of people are tribal people, and these tribal people have their distinctive languages also. So language is very, very important aspect of their identity. Besides belonging to one tribal group, they have also having distinctive identity of a language group, and that language group is specific to that tribal community. So, if you are visiting a state of, or you are in the state of Arunachal Pradesh, this aspect of diversity has to be taken into consideration. If you are not able to take this aspect of consideration, you may not be able to do justice with distinctiveness of or diversity of language which is existing in case of Arunachal Pradesh, or it could be the case of Tripura or any other northeastern states in particular, and many other states in general. So, language is also important aspects of tribal life. So, besides this language diversity within the tribal group and distinctive practices of the tribal group, you have also one reference point of diversity, and that is regional diversity. Regions are also important marker of identity, and this has to be understood. If you are trying to make sense of India, each of the aspect of diversity is important in its own respect. But at the same time, you have to understand the dynamics of region also, a specific reference to region also, and I am especially referring to the aspect of region, which especially for the region that different regions have their own specificity. And this specificity is very important for understanding the whole idea of maintaining unity in India. So, in the first case, while I was referring to religious group or jati groups, I pointed out that although there could be different jati groups and there could be some kind of commonality between different jati groups living in different states, different regions, but a vertical split is prevented, and this is prevented precisely due to the reasons that some aspect of regional identity is important. If you just compare religious groups, say for example Muslims living in Kerala and Muslim living in Assam, you do not find say commonality in terms of say their food habits. There are many practices, though both groups, I mean living in say Kerala or living in Assam, they follow Islam, and that is no disagreement on this point, but they are also regionally rooted in their own practices. So, in terms of food habit, in terms of trades, in terms of taking pride in region, that is very important, and this is one important aspect of understanding the whole idea of unity in diversity in India, wherein regions play very important role in maintaining unity. So, on the one hand, sometimes in the early 60s, I mean Western scholars mistakenly they took the view that if regions or regional identities are so much pronounced, that would ultimately result into a split of India, or say that they will contribute to, they will certainly, they will prove to be Fissiparous tendency, but it has not happened. So, any serious scholar of Indian society and its processes, one can easily identify that regions have not, or regional identities have not essentially given rise to Fissiparous tendency. You may refer to one or two phenomena and one or two examples, but by and large these regional identities are also contributing to giving some sense of unity within the region. And if regional sense of unity among different groups, language groups, or regionally specific jati groups or religious group, that is emerging out of this, that also contribute to maintenance of unity of India, because these regional groups also prevent vertical split on one single marker of identity, be it religious identity or regional linguistic identity or caste identity or tribal identity. So this also contribute to some kind of coming together and some kind of weaving together of all the differences. And if this contribute to weaving together of differences in the broader frame of maintaining political unity, that is very, very important. So political unity on the one hand and social diversity on the other. So there is a kind of dynamic interplay between social diversity, which can easily be identified at various levels, at different in different forms. That is one dimension of understanding or making sense of India, but it is also dynamically interacting with the political unity. So political in terms of Indian identity, if we come from the aspect of socio-cultural diversities which are there in at the societal level, how these social diversities or cultural diversities are weaved together for making sense of India or making sense of an Indian identity, that is very, very important. So for in this context, it is important that if we are referring to India, how do we approach India? How do we understand India? How do we imagine India? Whether we are imagining India as a homogeneous country, or we are imagining India as a country having diversity of belief system, diversity of caste group, language groups or tribal groups. So this distinctiveness or this aspect needs to be captured. Unless we are unless we capture this dynamics, we may not be able to understand the whole dynamics of making of Indian identity. Second important aspect in this sense, in this respect, is to understand a unique process of layering of different identities. So multiple identities are important in this case. Since you are, we are diverse, and we have multiple identities. Linguistic identity we have, regional identity we have, say caste identity we have, many more identities we have. But how this plurality of identities come together? So there is a process of layering of variety of identities. Some of my friends may like to argue other way, that why do we layer these identities? But if you try to map out the context of layering of identity, you find that at one level you are Hindi speaker, Telugu speaker, Tamil speaker in terms of linguistic identity. But if you identify with one identity, that is national identity of India, you do not find contradiction between Indian identity and your identity belonging to one linguistic group or one regional group. So you may be a resident or person of one region, but at the same time you are also a person of Indian identity. So a kind of layering takes place, wherein you are starting with the basic identity, one identity, and there could be multiple reference points of identities. And if different reference points of identities are there, these reference points may form a kind of layering, one layer after other. So if we are talking about our kinship networks, this could be one marker of identity. But if we move from our own kinship network, then we come to caste identity. That is another important layering. So if we further go to language groups or linguistic identity, it could be another layer of identity marker. Then you have your own regional identity, identity of a state. Some of the identity may be considered as constructed one, but we cannot take or sit on judgment of various identity markers of individual or groups. So if we take say one layer of regional identity, this regional identity may be part of larger identity, that is national identity. National identity, that is national identity, and that national identity is identity, Indian identity, which is composite identity, which cannot be reduced to one specific group, one specific community. So if we are talking about Indian identity, it cannot be reduced to say one religious group, one language group, one regional group. Rather, it is a comprehensive identity. It is one identity marker which is built upon plurality of our identity, multiple identities, and layering of identities. And this stands, this is important, that what is our reference point of identity, whether we are referring to Indian identity or regional identity. So this layering of identity becomes very, very important in this regard. Further, if we specifically reference to the aspect of unity, this we have reflected that at the societal level, at the cultural level, there are processes which are operating, some kind of intercultural practices are there, interaction between groups have been there. So that is one important dimension. But beside this dimension, there are also aspects of unity, and this aspect of unity, besides prevailing at the societal level, that is also reflected at the political level and the constitutional document level.
Okay, so how will you sum up this whole system in giving 2 or 3 points, sir?
I would like to submit the whole idea of unity and diversity and making sense of India in few words. I would say that Indian identity and India must be understood in terms of its diversity and its composite identity, not reducible to one group or one community. If we take view of Indian identity in this way, that will contribute to maintaining unity of India. If we start reducing our national identity or Indian identity to one group or the other, that would fragment our sense of India, and this fragmentation would lead to fragmentation of India in the long run.
Okay. So, well friends, with this word we would like to conclude the lecture. I thank all of you for watching the lecture. On your behalf, I thank Dr. Kumar Suresh for giving such an insightful lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you.